Well, the history is a little misleading because, the official history that when I was, that the positivists were the great school, I think that's only true with hindsight. It means simply we pay attention to a handful of positivist philosophers because they became the important figures who we discussed and differentiated ourselves with. But when I was an undergraduate, I think most philosophy departments didn't even have a positivist, or certainly at most one. UCLA has Hans Reichenbach. Princeton hired Peter Hempel, C.G. Hempel, who was nicknamed Peter by his wife and his friend. Hired C.G. Hempel while I was there. It had no positivists when I came to Princeton in 1953. Columbia, no positivist. Ernest Nagel was not a positivist. He was a pragmatist with respect for the logical empiricist, which is something different. And pragmatism wasn't replaced by logical positivism. It had gone into a quiet desuetude. Before, I think more than anybody else, it was Quine's attack on the analytic-synthetic distinction, which then, as it were, then Carnap became Quine's main opponent, saying, no, it was right. And I think the Carnap-Quine debate is really what made logical positivism so central. But logical positivists were never a majority, and it was never the case that most influential philosophers would have called themselves logical positivists. Yeah, but one doesn't need to accept even Dewey's version of the pragmatist theory of meaning. I mean, Dewey, it's interesting, a paradox. My teacher, Hans Reichenbach, was usually called a logical positivist, although he would never be caught dead calling himself a positivist, by the way. Criticized Dewey as being too positivist because he thought Dewey doesn't really and in fact, in Dewey's quest for certainty, Dewey, who had, I think, a daughter, it might be, I think it was one, his daughter studied theoretical physics. In fact, she studied in Denmark. And he's under the influence, and there he appeals to Niels Bohr and the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics to defend a version of verificationism about theoretical entities in physics that Reichenbach himself found too positivist. So you're saying the existence of quarks and so on, that just means, all that means is when we make certain experiments, we will get certain results. I think there is a tendency to, I think both the positivists and the pragmatists were verificationists. That is, they looked for the meaning of our sentences in how they would be verified. The difference is the positivists used it to try to rule out large chunks of philosophy. The pragmatists used it to try to see what philosophical positions really meant. But nevertheless, as theories of meaning, I'm not a verificationist. I think a statement can be perfectly meaningful even though there's no hope of verifying it. I often, for instance, I often use there are no intelligent extraterrestrials. If that's true, we'll never verify it. Because if it's false, we might verify it. If there are intelligent extraterrestrials and they're sufficiently near in space and time, we might verify it. But if there are no intelligent extraterrestrials, there's no possible way of verifying that statement. Now, it seems to me that for a verificationist, that has to be a meaningless statement. But for me, it is a statement that could be true. In fact, it would depress me if it were true, I can say. We're alone. We can conjecture. I think our ability to conjecture outruns the limits of any sort of verificationist doctrine in philosophy.